Mr. Chairman and Paul, good morning. Dennis Milligan here.
Good morning, Mr. Treasurer. How is your day going today?
Fine. Larry, since we're not on the record here, I didn't have too good a day Sunday. It was called the Super Bowl. Could I depend on you maybe to talk later, maybe borrow a little bit of money? Yeah, I was a Chiefs guy. Yeah.
Well, since I was a Bucks guy, I probably have a little extra in my pocket.
You probably do. Yeah.
And you know how bad us Baptists are about gambling.
Yeah, y'all won't even say hi to each other in the liquor store.
I like those drive-through windows. You know, the home delivery looks like it's going to fall by the wayside. You know, that was helpful also.
Yeah. I was informed that we are recording, so I guess.
I know.
Yeah.
All of this is in jest.
Yeah, we can't always be serious like Paul.
I could get excommunicated from my Sunday school class and my Bible study class.
Yes, you could. And so would I.
Grant, how are we doing on the quorum?
Sir, I think we're good. I'm having Autumn take one last look just to double check me, but I think you're good to go.
We have 8.
How many are on the committee? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like 10.
We have 8 out of 10.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to proceed?
Yes,
If
sir.
we are, we've got 8. Let's move ahead. Have you heard? Has anyone told you they would not be on the call?
The only person that I had that contacted me was Eric Munson, and he has his alternates on here.
Okay. All
But
right.
I did not hear from anybody else.
Okay.
Now, Kale's here now. I don't think I had him, so that would make 9.
And who are we missing?
So we would be Mr. Britton.
Okay. Britain.
Jim Britton.
I'll tell you what, let's proceed then. Good morning, members of the State Board of Finance, guests, and members of the press. Seeing a quorum, I hereby call the meeting of the State Board of Finance to order. The first item on the agenda will be the adoption of the minutes of the November 10th, 2020 meeting. Minutes of the meeting have been distributed via email. May I have a motion to adopt those meeting minutes?
So move.
We have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Are there is there any discussion on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, they've been adopted. The next item is the presentation of the Treasury Investment Performance Report by Treasurer Milligan. Treasurer Milligan, you're recognized to present your report.
Mr. Chairman, good morning, and the board, good morning to each and every one of you. Hope you're staying safe and sound. Looks like we may have a little winter weather coming, but you know what? We'll survive. So it's great to be here with each and every one of you. Got a brief report for you today on the second quarter investment portfolio status for fiscal year 2021. And then I'll open up the floor for questions if there are any. So let's get right to it. Our short-term portfolio earned a little over $961,000 in the second quarter that ended December 31. This compares with $10 million received during the same quarter in 2020. Before COVID hit, the United States and the Fed took interest rates down to almost zero. This portfolio was getting a weighted average of roughly 200 basis points. Now our short-term portfolio is getting less than 20 basis points with no increase in rates on the horizon in the near future. This is just one example of the unfortunate effect of the pandemic on our portfolio. Investment receipts from our long-term portfolio totaled $7.4 million compared with $13.3 million for the same period pre-pandemic last year. You'll see from the chart that we saw a payout from our investment in Israel bonds of almost $1 million, as well as an increase in revenue from agency bonds. This increased revenue was due to the fact that we increased our holdings in callable bonds. Total revenue for the second quarter of FY 2021 was $8.39 million compared to $23.4 million during the same time last year. Again, prior to the chaos of COVID, it's no other explanation. While it was no doubt a tough quarter, I'm hopeful that we're reaching the bottom of the worst of the pandemic's effects on our state's investment portfolio. The half-year total for FY 2021 is $15.2 million, bringing the total receipted amounts under my administration to $408 million. That's an average of $68 million a year since 2015. While there are going to be ups and downs in any investment structure, I'm still very pleased with not only how far we've come, but the work we're doing to lay the groundwork for a solid future. This next chart is going to show you our portfolio allocation during the second quarter of FY 2021. You will see that the majority of our investments are in agency mortgage-backed securities, which are fully backed by the United States government, as well as commercial paper. We've been able to achieve a greater diversification of our portfolio by broadening out into various other agency callable bonds, various other mortgage-backed securities, as well as agency and commercial mortgage-backed securities over the last several months. It's allowed us to see a stable and positive growth for the portfolio despite these trying times. However, as I've said before, the drastic steps by the Federal Reserve last March to ward off a COVID-induced recession resulted in a decline in the receipts for the last quarter of FY 20, and as we've discussed, the first half of FY 21. We've been able to maintain a solid performing portfolio despite the current interest rate environment. The diversity that we've added to the portfolio has been met with stagnated rates, which is results of the Fed's attempt to stimulate the economy by buying billions of dollars worth of U.S. Treasury, agency bonds, similar mortgage-backed securities each month. Thus, we're re-entering into a market with limited supply, lower rates, and a lot of federal intervention. We will watch to see how the Fed continues to stay in this market, when they plan to exit, and continue to find the best of what is available to us. What we're noticing is that the economic recovery in the short term is optimistic, but it's just that. Optimism is a hope, a feeling, and investors' feelings are not indicative of what the recovery from the pandemic will look like in the long term. It's too soon to tell what a recovery looks like, especially with regard to fixed income market in which we operate. What is obvious is that it will be a much slower recovery than what we've seen with the stock market. We're all familiar with the old adage that says, with great risk comes great reward, right? Well, as you know, the Treasury doesn't trade in higher risk investments like stocks. So while these parts of the markets are doing well, the overall optimism of that environment affects us less directly, since we operate in the fixed income market made up of low-risk bonds and securities. We're going to see a much slower recovery, but the reward, while slower to achieve, is more secure. In the meantime, we're continuing to lay a solid foundation that the state treasury can rely upon for years to come. We've changed the internal structure of the state's investment team to ensure appropriate checks and balances. We're going to keep adding diversification to our portfolio, and we will continue to actively manage our investments, ensuring we get the best and most stable return that we can for the state of Arkansas. Block by block, piece by piece, we're continuing to lay the groundwork for a secure foundation on which the state treasury can stand for years to come. We're building the foundation for a better tomorrow, and certainly from all of us, that's something we can be proud of. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Treasurer Milligan. Does anyone have a question for the treasurer concerning his report? Well, it doesn't look like we have a question then. That's the first time that's happened, Treasurer. So I would like to have a motion to accept the treasurer's report, please.
Motion.
You have a second?
We have a
Second.
second from Auditor Lee.
Thank you. Any questions, any additional questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next item are the quarterly motions for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 21. That's April the 1st, 2021 through June the 30th of 2021. These motions were included in the documents distributed by email. As chairman of the State Board of Finance, I make a motion to the board that no funds are available for deposit into the State Board of Finance Certificate of Deposit Program. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? As chairman of the Board of Finance, I make a motion, the board direct the treasurer of the state to purchase warrants for the succeeding quarter as April the 1st, 2021 through June the 30th, 2021 pursuant to Act 1088 of 2013, and to keep reasonable amounts in demand deposit accounts and money markets during the next quarter for the transaction of the day-to-day activities. I need a second, please.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Can I ask a question? Oh, any opposed? I'm sorry, I stepped on that.
Yes.
I was just going to, Treasurer Milligan, has there been any discussion about changing the language in the law and removing the word warrants, moving away from the word warrants? Have you heard any scuttlebutt on that?
Oh.
Yes, Bill.
I haven't, Auditor Grant, Jason, has there been anything run through from?
The Treasurer, Auditor Lee.
Yeah, I think TJ has.
This is TJ Fowler, Legal Counsel for the Treasury. I've been in communication with the new rules group that's been created by Bureau of Legislative Research, and they're formalizing processes so that the entire Arkansas Code and all rules and regulations have the same nomenclature and phrasing. And I think taking the word warrants out is part of that process. All of the State Board of Finance's rules have been given to that committee, And we're going to start meetings in the next couple months, formalizing all those new rules to make sure that everything is standardized, but that hasn't happened yet. I'll be sure to inform this committee as soon as we have that first meeting and the recommendations they make, because obviously this board will have to actually formally promulgate rules under that new verbiage.
Okay, and yeah, thank you, TJ. I'd heard some scuttlebutt, and I was just curious to if your office, because we both use the same verbiage. And for the record, I don't know how many of you know, Kevin Liang, the attorney for my office, took a nice position in the private sector, and January 15th is his last day with us. So thank you, TJ. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, the next item is the Rules Committee report, and I recognize TJ Fowler to give this report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. As y'all know, there were 2 rule changes that y'all have passed recently. The first rule change was from the December 3rd, 2019 rule. Those revisions were approved by the legislature on November 20th, 2020, and became effective approximately 14 days later when they were placed in the Arkansas Code by the Secretary of State's office. So those rules are effective and promulgated officially through the APA process. The second rule revision set y'all passed in the August 11th, 2020 meeting. Those rule revisions were properly published by the team over at DFNA, who always do a great job with that. They completed the public comment period without any comment or criticism on December 31st, 2020, and they've been sent to the legislature for review and approval. We're just awaiting a date for the legislative subcommittee and then the full legislature to review those. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, TJ. I don't think that requires any action. Any questions from the board? Hearing none. The next item is the Chief Compliance Officer report, and I recognize Autumn Sampson to give her report. Autumn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I first wanted to thank the Treasury staff and the board for their timeliness with the Statement of Financial Interest forms. I do have all of those collected, so thank you for that. This past year, as the treasurer's mentioned, has been a challenge on all of us, and unfortunately has also disrupted the work that I had planned. The office has had unfortunate circumstances that led to changes in the operation. With the outlook of this year looking dismal, it may be Christmas before we can start again on the operations manual. I will continue to converse with Grant and Jason to determine the best approach for staff to work with me going forward. I have joined the Government Finance Officers Association and the Government Investment Officers Association. Both associations have many forms of education on compliance and internal auditing, either on their website or through online classes. I plan to enroll in a few webinars over the next few months that pertain to market risk and guidelines for internal controls. I've also reached out to a couple of state treasuries that have some form of internal audit, whether it be compliance or a true internal auditor already in place. My greatest help has come from West Virginia. They've graciously shared operations manuals, internal control guidelines, and risk assessments. I'm going to continue to educate myself over the next few months and also work with staff on understanding the new framework of the office. And that is my presentation, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Any questions?
Excuse me.
Okay. I think I'd like to have a motion to accept Autumn's report, please.
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Autumn. Is there any other business to be brought before the board today? Okay, hearing none, note that the next meeting will be on May the 11th, 2011. And may I have a motion for adjournment? Sound like somebody's already gone.
So moved.
Is second? I may have to, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Y'all have a
Chairman.
great day.